We are beginning our tutorial for Vast the Crystal Caverns, a game where we have four very different asymmetric roles. The knight, who is attempting to slay the dragon, the goblins, who are trying to kill the knight, the dragon himself, who is trying to wake up and escape the cave, and then the cave, which is actually trying to build itself up and then collapse on all the other players. These are the four different roles that we'll be playing. So here you can see the beginning of what the cave looks like. Our hero, the knight, has just descended the stairwell down into the depths of the Crystal Caverns, and she will be the first role that we will discuss. So the knight, she basically has this mechanic where she is trying to gain grit along this grit track. So she starts off with 2 cubes at the start of the game, and as her grit level increases, she passes this 5 spot, she'll gain this cube, and etc. as she goes on. But she starts off with 0 grit and 2 grit cubes. She has a few different actions, special actions she can take, but these are her main different stats. She can move, she can do different encounters, and she has a strength of 1, and her cubes here can influence that. For instance, she puts this cube here, her movement for the turn has just increased by 2. So it starts off as 1, each of these have a base of 1, but this increases it by 2. This increases her ability to do encounters by 1 to a maximum of 2 for the turn, for instance. So the main things she'll be doing are moving around the map, revealing tiles, having encounters, and trying to attack the dragon, which she needs to use a bomb to do while the dragon is underground. She can also shoot the goblins, go through walls using her map, and defend herself using her shield. She has a few different side quests. At any point, the knight has 3 side quests that she's trying to achieve, and they reward her with the grit in the top right corner. All 3 of these side quests just so happen to reward her with 4 grit. So, for instance, getting 2 Face of Treasure cards, attacking the goblin, and smashing crystals, which we'll talk about later. So the knight can gain grit a few different ways. She can also lose grit too, but the main way she gains grit is by revealing a cave tile, smashing crystals, having the opportunity to take a treasure but declining it gets her 5. Completing a side quest gives her the number of indicated grit there, and then getting a dragon gem, which we'll discuss later. So that's the knight. She's kind of like an RPG character who's going into the dungeon, leveling up, getting stronger as she goes, and trying to find and kill the dragon while avoiding the goblins. The second player we have are the goblins. The goblins are made up of 3 different tribes: the Fangs, Bones, and Eye tribe. They have an interesting mechanic where they draw these different war cards. So at the start of the goblin's turn, they'll draw a war card. This war card tells them how many population to increase each tribe by. So at the beginning of the game, the population is 0 for each tribe, and the population is determined by how many of these discs are underneath the miniatures. So according to our war card, the Fangs tribe would increase population by 1, and we would put that disc underneath. Bones tribe by 2, we could put that underneath. And the Eye tribe by 2. So now their population is equal to, their strength is equal to their population. With one exception, these red discs have, they're basically +1 strength, and that's a special ability of the Fangs tribe. So they each kind of have a different special effect that you can do. When these guys are off the board, like right now, they're considered hidden, But when they're out on the map, in these dark tiles, that's where the goblins come out, on the dark tiles, then they're considered revealed. And when a goblin tribe is revealed, they're allowed to take their special action. For instance, increasing their rage, which the rage track down here, it starts out at 1. And the more rage you have, the more war cards you can draw at the beginning of your turn. So this basically gives you more options when you're doing this, because that can make a big difference on the game. And the goblin tribes can overpopulate. If they get more than 4 population, they scatter. Basically, they have to get popped off the map. They come back here, and they lose 2 population. So it's kind of you have to manage basically their population to keep them lower. So back to the war card. So we populated our tribes. Then sometimes the card also enables us to draw a monster card and or draw a secret card. So this card allows us to draw one of each. So we'll take a monster card. The Bright Beetles. It says when this tribe loses population, discard the Bright Beetle. It loses 1 less. So we can assign the monster to one of our tribes. So perhaps we'll assign it here to the Phoenix tribe. We'll also draw a secret card, which basically just gives us a special effect. We can play this during our turn. When we play it, for instance, this one allows us to move to any unoccupied dark tile, kind of basically like going underneath the map, avoiding the normal movement rules. So these secret cards are good. They allow us to kind of spring attack and do some interesting things. So that is the goblins. They'll be coming out onto the map. They can only reveal themselves on the appropriate tiles matching their icon. The dragon. The dragon is trying to slowly wake up. So he has all these different cubes. This is the sloth track. The way he gets rid of these cubes is by gathering treasure tokens, eating goblins, revealing event tiles, placing a dragon gem, and just kind of sitting still and not moving. So when he does any of those things, it allows him to take cubes off of this track, put them down here on his wakefulness track, which slowly increases his armor and increases his spirit. Spirit is the number of power cards he can draw in his turn. So at the beginning of the game, he's drawing 3 spirit cards. He has 3 spirits, so he draws 3 cards. So his goal is to keep advancing on these tracks, bringing the cubes down here until finally he gets here with 11 and he can wake up. So the dragon, you can see, starts kind of asleep, slumbering, and when he wakes up, he gets this figure out on the board, and he can finally escape the cave at that point and make his way to the exit. So the dragon, he'll draw 3 cards. They'll have different icons on them. So for the sake of example, I'm going to mix this up. Let's see, maybe he drew, let's say he drew these 3 to start. They have different icons on them: flame, a claw, and a wing. Those are the 3 different symbols. So the dragon can use these different symbols to perform different actions. So all these different powers use different combinations of symbols, and that's how the dragon takes his turn. For instance, he can use this claw to roll the dragon die, and this affects tiles. Like wherever the dragon is, it affects the tiles around it, according to the die. So this is a really interesting way that the dragon can affect different things. Like this allows him to basically to eat goblins. Different things like the flame allows him to reveal tiles. So the dragon is trying to basically accomplish these goals, and he uses his cards to perform different actions. He has to be careful though. His health, he only has 5 health, and the knight is actively working to kill him, similar to the way that the goblins are trying to kill the knight. So the knight has to keep track of their health and make sure that they're being careful with that. So that's the dragon. He's going to start the game basically wherever the knight is, and he starts underground. So technically he cannot be directly attacked in that same way until compared to when he's above ground. So that's a brief summary of the dragon. Moving on to the cave. The cave is really fascinating. They basically are manipulating the board. They have a lot of control over what's going on. They're in like a classic RPG, they are the dungeon master, kind of controlling what's going on with the players. So the main way they do it, they have this little draw bag, and they will be drawing omen tokens out of this bag. Their omen tokens are based on how many treasures are out on the map and crystal tokens. So over the course of the game, they'll be trying to get more and more of those out. At the beginning, they only get to draw one omen token. So, similar to the dragon, they use these symbols to activate different abilities. For instance, they could activate the giant bats using one omen. So this one though doesn't match that symbol, so they wouldn't be able to do it. So they would look and see, okay, what can we do here? They could do hatred, that only requires 1 for the first time they activate it, 2 for the second time, and 3 for the third time they activate it. Or they could do this crystal curse, where they can rotate a tile. So they have all these different ways they can rotate tiles, they can target different players, they can scare players around, and they can basically add treasures to the map. All different kinds of really neat ways to manipulate the board. And kind of keep all the players in check. They basically don't want the players any one player to win the game or get too ahead, because what the cave is trying to do, they want the cave to build up, get as big as possible, and then they need to collapse it. That's how they win. They have to collapse the cave and then destroy cave tiles until they reveal 5 different crystal tiles in order to win. And seated in this big stack of tiles are 9 crystal tiles, and they're spaced throughout it. So every time a new tile is revealed, the cave is looking at their hand of 3 and choosing a tile to add to the map. So they have a lot of control over that, and that's how the cave works. So that's just kind of a quick overview of the different roles in Vast, and then I'm going to go over a little sample turn to show you how it works.